I thought the worst part was finding out my fiancé cheated on me. I was wrong. The worst part was finding out that everyone else already knew. Adam and I had been together for 10 years. 10. We'd grown up together. We'd survived college, job changes, family drama, funerals, financial stress. We had finally gotten engaged. We were planning a wedding for next year. We were talking about kids in a few years, a house, a life. And then he sat on my couch and told me he'd slept with my stepsister. Not once, for 3 months. He said the first time didn't count because he was drunk and she took advantage of him. I remember staring at him while he said that, trying to process whether he actually believed that would soften the blow. He admitted he didn't have an excuse for the other times. There were a handful of them. A handful. Like it was a snack he'd grabbed too many of. Betty was pregnant. I already knew that part. I'd been helping plan her baby shower. My mom had guilt-tripped me into co-hosting with our other stepsister, Claire. I'd been spending hours researching floral arrangements, pricing venues, arguing over stroller models. An $800 jogging stroller, to be exact. I hadn't given Claire my share yet. And in that moment, I felt an almost sick sense of relief that I hadn't. Adam said he confessed because his own father walked out on him when he was a toddler. He said he didn't want to be that kind of man. He wanted to be a father to his child. But he still wanted to be with me. Because he loved me. Because it was a mistake. 3 months is not a mistake, it's a hobby. I told him to get the fuck out of my apartment. Thank God we weren't living together yet. We had before, but he'd moved back in with his mom when she was sick. Apparently once she got better, he used his free time to sleep with my stepsister. Some of his things were already at my place because he was supposed to move in next month. I started stacking them by the door while he talked, like if I kept moving my hands I wouldn't start screaming. After he left, I called my mom. I wasn't calling for advice. I was calling because she's my mom. Because I needed someone to hear me cry, and she did. But not the way I expected. Somewhere between sobbing and hyperventilating, I told her Adam was the father of Betty's baby. There was a pause. Then she said she knew. She knew. Apparently Betty had confessed months ago during some emotional breakdown about missing her dead mother. My mom, Claire, and my stepfather had all known. For months. While I was out here planning the baby shower. While I was budgeting for a stroller. While I was trying to be the bigger person and act like Betty and I had some kind of sisterly bond. My own mother knew my fiancé had fathered my stepsister's child and she didn't tell me. Instead, she guilt-tripped me into hosting the baby shower. She started talking about how what matters is the new life coming into the family, how we all need to get along. How I shouldn't throw away 10 years over a mistake. How Betty is still my sister. How family is family. I hung up on her. I've always been the bigger person with Betty, from the moment we met at ages 10 and 9, and she refused to give back my favorite stuffed animal, Mrs. Snuffles. My mom felt sorry for her because she'd lost her mother so young. Betty got to keep my stuffed animal. I got told to understand. That dynamic never changed. When Betty wrecked our shared car as teenagers, I still had to pay half for the replacement because it wouldn't be fair for her to shoulder it alone. When she acted spoiled, cruel, dismissive, I was told to be mature. When she made more money than me and flaunted it, I was told not to be jealous. Now she sleeps with my fiancé and gets pregnant, and I'm supposed to be the bigger person again. Claire texted me early the next morning asking when I'd send my share of the stroller and baby shower expenses. Nearly $3,000 in total. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I replied, "Go fuck yourself. We put everything on our credit cards." She works retail and goes to school. For a split second I felt bad. Then I remembered she'd known too. She could return the stroller, cancel the venue, let mom and stepdad bail her out. I sent a mass text to our mutual friends telling them Adam was a cheating bastard and that Betty was pregnant with his child. Then I turned my phone off. What if they all knew too? That thought felt like drowning. The next morning I decided I was done being blindsided. I drove to my mom's house while she was at her weekly volunteer shift. I still had a key. My stepdad was probably home watching TV and wouldn't question me. I went straight to the attic. I grabbed every box of my things. I'd stored there for when I buy a house someday. I searched for Mrs. Snuffles. I couldn't find her. I tore through Betty's boxes, Claire's boxes, nothing. The family dog must have destroyed her years ago. I found old photos of Betty. I grabbed scissors from the kitchen. I'm not proud of that part. I cut up a stack of her pictures, including one with her mother. It was petty. It was ugly. It felt satisfying in the moment. I packed up my grandmother's jewelry, the pieces she'd willed to me, skipping my mom entirely. I'd let my mom borrow them indefinitely because I felt guilty. Suddenly I didn't trust her not to hand them to Betty out of pity. It wasn't stealing, it was reclaiming what was mine. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were dozens of messages from Mom, Betty, and Claire. I deleted them without reading. The messages from friends hurt more. Most of them said, "We care about you both." Both. One of them admitted Adam had told him a week before confessing to me. He'd encouraged Adam to come clean. Encouraged. I met my mom for lunch a few days later. She was upset I'd taken my jewelry without leaving a note. A note. I told her she should have told me my fiancé was having a baby with my stepsister. She said she didn't want to get involved. She said telling me would have meant taking sides. She said she'd been in shock. I told her she's been in shock every time Betty did something unforgivable. She tried to convince me not to throw away 10 years. I told her Adam was the one who threw it away. She said she couldn't choose between her daughters. I told her I wasn't asking her to choose. I was asking her to stand with the one who'd been betrayed. She said if she'd given birth to all three of us, her answer would be the same. That was the moment something snapped cleanly inside me. I told her I wouldn't attend family gatherings. My future children wouldn't know my stepfamily. I'd call her occasionally, but if she mentioned Betty, Adam, or the baby, I'd hang up. She said she hoped I'd forgive and forget. I told her Betty tore the family apart when she slept with my fiancé. Then I paid my half of the bill and left. Adam showed up a few days later with pizza, ice cream, and flowers. I had his things stacked by the door. He confessed something else. He'd lost his virginity to Betty a few weeks before he lost it to me. He'd never told me. I felt physically winded. If I'd known that at 18, I would have walked away. I would have gone on trips he didn't want to take, moved cities, gotten a cat, painted my nails without worrying he thought nail polish was weird. I'd shaped so much of my life around him. He said he loved me. He wanted to fix it. I told him I wouldn't be Betty's baby's stepmother. If I took him back, he'd have to cut contact with her completely. He said Betty claimed there was a chance he wasn't the father. I told him there was also a chance he was, and I wasn't gambling my life on her word. 2 betrayals. 1 at 18. 1 now. That was enough. He asked if we could still be friends. No. My dad, who lives across the country, offered to pay to break my lease and let me live in one of his rental houses rent-free. I said yes. I quit my job. I started therapy. I bought the boots I'd always wanted but couldn't justify because we were saving for the wedding. I bought nail polish in every color. I started looking at cats available for adoption in my dad's city, 2,000 miles away. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't planning my life around someone else. I don't know if I'll ever forgive Betty, or Adam, or my mom. But I know this, I'm done being the bigger person. And I'm done living in a house where Mrs. Snuffles never came home. I woke up the next morning with that sick, hollow feeling like my body already knew my life had changed before my brain fully caught up. For a few seconds, I almost forgot everything. Then it all came rushing back at once. Adam, Betty, the baby, my mother knowing. I actually felt nauseous, like my stomach dropped out of my body. The first thing I did was check my phone, even though I already knew it wouldn't make anything better. Dozens of messages, missed calls, group chats lighting up. I didn't open anything. I couldn't handle seeing sympathy mixed with awkward neutrality, or worse, people trying to understand both sides. I kept thinking about how normal everything had felt just days earlier. Wedding planning, baby shower spreadsheets, stroller links, color palettes. I'd been playing the role of supportive sister, loving fiancé, reasonable daughter, all while being completely fucking clueless. The rage didn't hit all at once, it came in waves. Sharp flashes followed by this dull, aching disbelief. I kept replaying moments in my head, Betty smiling at me, my mom encouraging me to help more, Adam acting stressed but loving. Every memory felt contaminated now. I decided I wasn't going to sit in my apartment spiraling. I needed to do something, even if it was messy. So I grabbed my keys and drove straight to my mom's house. I knew she was out volunteering, I knew the house would be empty. And I knew I still had a key. Walking into that house felt surreal. I'd grown up there, holidays, birthdays, movie nights. And now it just felt like a crime scene I was revisiting to make sense of what happened. Everything looked exactly the same, which somehow made it worse. I went straight to the attic. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the boxes I'd left there years ago, things I'd been saving for someday when I'd have my own house and my own life. I took them all, no guilt. No second guessing. Then I went to my mom's jewelry box. The one she always kept in the same drawer. The jewelry my grandmother had left to me. Jewelry I'd let my mom keep because I felt bad, because I didn't want drama, because I trusted her. I took every single piece that was mine. I kept thinking, if she could hide this from me for months, what else could she justify giving away for the family? I wasn't going to wait around and find out. That trust was gone. I looked for Mrs. Snuffles, the stupid stuffed animal that somehow represented every time I'd been told to be the bigger person. I tore through boxes. Betty's boxes. Claire's boxes. I couldn't find her, and that hurt more than I expected. Driving home, I felt numb, like I was watching myself from the outside. When I finally turned my phone back on, I saw messages from my friends. Most of them were careful, neutral. We care about you both. This is complicated. It felt like another betrayal stacked on top of the first. Only a couple of people actually called Adam what he was. A cheater. A liar. Someone who blew up a decade-long relationship. The rest seemed more concerned with not picking sides than with the fact that my entire life had just imploded. Then Adam showed up. He had the audacity to knock like this was a normal visit, like he hadn't detonated everything. He was holding pizza, ice cream, flowers, like some rom-com apology gesture. I had his stuff stacked neatly by the door, ready to hand it to him and close the door forever. He asked me to talk. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I needed to hear him say it out loud. Maybe I needed the final nail in the coffin. We sat down and he started crying almost immediately. He told me he loved me, that it was a mistake, that he wanted to be there for his child because his own father had walked out, that he still wanted a life with me. Every sentence somehow made things worse. Then he said something that actually knocked the breath out of me. He admitted that when we first got together, all those years ago, he'd already slept with Betty, weeks before he slept with me. I felt like I'd been punched in the face. 10 years, 10 fucking years built on that lie. I realized in that moment how much of myself I had shrunk for him. The trips I didn't take, the things I didn't do, the life I postponed because I thought we were building something together. I told him flat out that I would never be Betty's child's stepmother, that I wanted a Betty-free life, that if he wanted to be a father, that was his choice, but it would never include me. He tried to argue logistics, like this was a scheduling issue. He asked if we could still be friends. I almost laughed. Friends, after everything. I told him I'd think about it, knowing damn well there was no chance in hell. After he left, I called my dad. I hadn't even realized how badly I needed to hear his voice until I did. He listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't minimize. Didn't tell me to be understanding or forgiving. He offered me a way out, a real one. He said he could help me break my lease. That I could move across the country if I wanted. That I didn't have to stay trapped in a city full of ghosts and compromises. That night, for the first time since everything blew up, I slept. Not well, but enough. And when I woke up, something had shifted. The shock was fading. The sadness was still there. But underneath it, there was something else. Clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't cruel for refusing to swallow betrayal just to keep the peace. I had been loyal, honest, loving, and I wasn't going to be punished for that by sacrificing myself even more. By the end of the day, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end of my life. It was the end of a version of it that had been quietly suffocating me for years. And that realization scared me. But it also felt like the first real breath I'd taken in a very long time. The next few weeks felt unreal, like I was watching my own life from a distance. Everything familiar suddenly felt temporary. My apartment didn't feel like home anymore. The city didn't feel like mine. Even my routines felt borrowed from a version of myself that didn't exist anymore. I stopped responding to most people. I wasn't trying to be dramatic or punish anyone. I just didn't have the energy to explain my pain over and over to people who wanted a neat, emotionally convenient version of events. I needed silence to hear myself think. My mom kept calling, leaving voicemails, texting about unrelated things like grocery sales or something funny she saw on TV, like we could just go back to normal. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Every message felt like pressure to forgive something I wasn't ready to forgive. I did meet her once, for lunch. Neutral ground. Public. I needed to say what I needed to say, face to face, without yelling or crying or walking out halfway through. She looked tired, defensive, like she'd already rehearsed her justifications. She said she didn't want to be in the middle, that she loved all of us, that she wanted peace, that a baby was coming and that should matter more than old mistakes. I listened. I really did. And then I told her something she clearly wasn't prepared to hear. I told her that by staying neutral, she had chosen a side, that by protecting Betty's secret, she had sacrificed me, that I was her daughter, and I had needed her, and she had decided my pain was less disruptive than the truth. She cried, said she felt guilty, said she didn't know what to do. I told her that was the problem. She never knew what to do when it came to Betty, so she did nothing, and I was always the one paying the price. I told her I wasn't cutting her off completely, but things were going to change. I wouldn't attend family events. I wouldn't pretend. I wouldn't play happy family for a future that didn't include me. She nodded, but I don't think she fully understood yet. After that, something in me settled. Not healed, but steady. Adam tried again. Texts, apologies, long messages about growth and regret and love. I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. I just let him sit with the silence. He had taken enough of my energy already. I started packing slowly. Not because I had a deadline, but because it felt good. Each box felt like a decision. Each item I chose to keep felt intentional. Clothes I'd stopped wearing because he didn't like them. Shoes I'd avoided buying. Little things that added up. I bought nail polish. Too much nail polish. Colors I'd never worn before. I painted my nails at midnight just because I could. I booked a haircut and chopped it shorter than he ever liked. I looked in the mirror and didn't feel guilty about it. I spoke to a therapist. For the first time, I said everything out loud without censoring myself. Without trying to sound reasonable or fair or mature. Just honest. And the relief of that alone felt like progress. My dad helped me break my lease. He didn't make it dramatic. He didn't lecture. He just handled it. Offered me a place to land, a fresh start. A city where my past didn't follow me around every corner. I told a few friends I was leaving. Some were surprised. Some were supportive. Some faded away quietly. I let them. I was done chasing people who couldn't meet me where I was. On my last night in the apartment, I sat on the floor surrounded by half-packed boxes and let myself feel everything at once. The grief, the anger, the disappointment, the weird, unexpected excitement. I thought about the girl I'd been when I met Adam, how small she'd made herself to be loved. How proud she'd been of surviving on compromise. I wished I could reach back and tell her she deserved more than endurance. When I got on the plane, I didn't cry. I expected to, but I didn't. I just felt calm. Like I was finally moving forward instead of bracing for impact. The first few weeks in my dad's city were quiet, disorienting, lonely at times, but peaceful. I adopted a cat. I got lost on purpose. I started imagining a future without needing anyone's permission. Sometimes I still thought about Betty, about my mom, about Adam, but the thoughts didn't spiral anymore. They just passed through, like memories instead of open wounds. One night, I realized something that made me laugh out loud. I wasn't angry all the time anymore. I wasn't bracing for disappointment. I wasn't constantly trying to be the bigger person. I was just living. I didn't know what came next. Love, marriage, kids. None of it felt urgent anymore. What mattered was that for the first time in my adult life, my choices were actually mine. And that felt better than any wedding I'd ever planned.